Namaskar. I welcome the students and scholars of Gandhian Studies. I am Professor Nandini Sinha Kapoor with the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies at Indira Gandhi National Open University. For the next 20 to 25 minutes, I am going to speak on the topic Gandhian idea of man, his perception of man, Gandhiji's perception of man, and this belongs to your course MGPE 009. Without a reference to quote unquote who man is, no definite understanding of any social phenomena can be gained. It is necessary to firmly elucidate or describe what we mean by the term man quote unquote. Several terms are used to denote man. For example, such terms as quote unquote I, person, self, man and so on. Man can mean both a spiritually awakened person and a person who is sunk deep in materiality, which is commonly used to refer to a man. Mahatma Gandhi concurs with this characterization of man. Western civilization or Christianity inspired civilization, the view of man is essentially he is a material being, nothing more than a bundle of desires emerged as the dominant characterization. As far as India is concerned, let us go back to ancient India when we had famous 6 schools of Indian philosophy which we still continue to read about. One was Charbagh, and Charbaugh's materialism is very famous. He did not believe in the concept of soul, spirit or divinity, and therefore he only believed as be all and end all material world and the human body of a man. And we have Devi Prasad Chattopadhyay's famous work Indian Materialism, in which Charbagh has been extensively discussed. But rest of the Indian philosophies, as we know, they do believe in the concept and presence of a divine reality as well as a human soul and spirit inside us. It is necessary to pinpoint the exact sense in which Gandhiji understands man. The idea of man and his relationship with the external world are subject to varying interpretations. If spirituality is emphasized as the central quest of life, then there exists the danger of man becoming completely detached from the world and worldly affairs. If man's materiality is vigorously asserted, then there is the possibility of a man becoming completely engrossed in material life and becoming indifferent to claims of his soul. So, both are very extreme positions, that either man is conceived as a highly material being or he is conceived as a spiritual being. So, the discussion will go on these two opposite understanding of man, but Gandhiji believed in the median point, in a balance between the two. Gandhiji's idea of man becomes significant not only because Gandhiji puts a great stress on man's spiritual nature, but also because he conceives of man's relationship with the external world not in terms of exploitation, but that of a nurturance. So, what are basically the aims and objectives of reading this unit? A. There are two references of man's existence, that is materiality and spirituality, and the idea of man, scientific and creative. Gandhi's idea, secondly, Gandhi's idea of self-development, and finally, we are going to touch upon the quest of the absolute truth and non-violence. Let us see what are the general views on man. Firstly, the characterization of a person has an important bearing on how humanity is itself defined. Man is not detached from humanity. Humanity means a mass of men and women. So, we have to also dwell upon the definition of humanity. What distinguishes man from other living beings is the way man uses his consciousness to become a certain understanding, to have a judgment and conclusion about what he is and what kind of relationship he has or should have with the external world. Secondly, the way human person is defined has a great deal to say about what constitutes specifically human needs, aspirations and relationships. Individuality has no meaning if there are no other individuals. We cannot just dwell upon one specific man or one specific individual. A man has to be defined with reference to other men or other individuals. The presence of others, however, means that one has to come into contact with others, interact with them, compete with them for access to social resources and collaborate with them. To talk of humanity or human condition is also to talk of certain norms, standards or criteria that regulate and give content to the idea of man. Now let's see, let's have a brief discussion. Man is the resident of two orders of existence: A. Material aspect, B. Spiritual orientation. The scholar Max Keller talks of the confluence of two factors, material and spiritual. But real efficiency, he insists, lay in realm of material conditions whose inner workings are fateful for humanity. The spiritual nature of man, as one of reference of man, constitutes the first order of his existence. The second order of his existence is constituted by phenomenal world, the world of his pragmatic affairs in which he finds his temporary home. By temporary we mean we come into this world and again we leave this world to go back into the soul world. In such a society, the individual must compete but cannot survive if he does not collaborate with others. It describes what is meant by specifically human, that is, it describes those attributes that constitute humanity and that distinguish human beings from all other living beings. At the same time, it also prescribes certain norms with reference to which man can be judged as having or lacking in necessary human qualities. In short, the notion of humanity takes note of man as belonging to the realm of living beings, but striving to be human. The notion of humanity is therefore concerned not only with the empirical phenomena of being human, but also with the idea of man's perfectibility. Please, listeners and viewers, mark this term perfectibility, because Gandhiji was striving towards perfectibility of a human being. The notion of humanity also carries, by implication, the idea of the perfectibility of human society too. That is obvious that if a human being can be perfect, then the entire human society or humanity itself can also become perfect. The idea of man. Gandhiji's idea of man, we will come after a few seconds, but let's again look at two views. In order to enter into the realm of freedom, it is necessary to break the third down of the realm of necessity, that is, to conquer the animality in man and achieve what is distinctively human. Two distinct ways of viewing what substantively the term man means. One of these views takes man as a body-mind complex. Mind in this perspective is equated with a mechanical mind, that is, material mind. On this view, man is subject to laws of matter and life. He is simply a natural man. Enveloped by this reality, man makes use of his freedom for pursuing worldly concerns. This perspective breaks the link between man and the divine. See, it's all worldly and all material and all biological. So, this perspective breaks the link between man and the divine insofar as the idea of man is restricted to the body-mind complex alone. The element of soul as the seat of divine has been left out. It projects happiness as the primary concern of every person. Happiness lies in the satisfaction of desires. Satisfaction of desires becomes the instrument of man's fulfillment insofar as it helps in articulation of hidden potentialities. What becomes central in this perspective is the pursuit of self-interest. The pursuit of self-interest, so helped and supported by rationality, is then supposed to open the way for self-realization and to yield benign results for society and promote collective good. Thus, the pursuit of self-interest is claimed to hold the key to individual happiness and collective good. So, this is a very Western oriented, materially oriented perspective. As a result of man's externalization, there occurs a split between rationality and emotion, between matter and spirit, between man, and between man and nature. Fulfillment can only come by discovering one's real self. This requires detachment, if not complete withdrawal. By discovering his self, man becomes free and develops a nurturant attitude towards the external world. He can then develop his soul force, that is, his inner force, the soul or the human spirit, to successfully resist and defeat the forces that try to bend him to the will of others. Where does Gandhiji stand in relation to these views, to the above views that we have been discussing, spirit versus material, the materialistic man versus spiritualistic man? Gandhiji offers a very distinct view of man. He emphasizes the quest for salvation as the primary end and insists that this end must not be pursued in some cave or in a quiet solitude far from the madding crowd, but it must be pursued in this world, here and now. Gandhiji accepts the reality of this world as given. However, man has, in his view, has to transcend it to successfully resist its overpowering attractions. What is the nature of this transcendence? What factors are necessary to make this transcendence possible? What should be the nature of man, and what conditioning attributes are necessary for safeguarding and preserving the personhood of Gandhi's conception? These are some of the questions that are dealt below. How Gandhiji views man. One of the stories in the Panchatantra illustrates Gandhi's view of man very well. So, let us look at the ancient wisdom of Panchatantra story. There was a tiger cub which had fallen among the goats, and these goats brought him up. One day this herd of goat was attacked by a big tiger. When the big tiger spotted the tiger cub among the goats, he was very surprised. So he left the goats and picked up the tiger cub. He understood what had happened. He brought the tiger cub to the pond. And there at the pond, the tiger cub could see his self-image on the water and realized that he did not look like the goats, but he looked like this big tiger. This big tiger then gave him some raw meat to eat. So for the first time, a tiger cub, instead of eating vegetables or grasses, he for the first time tasted raw meat with blood and realized who he was. So he howled and roared for the first time in his life. This above story illustrates the process of self-discovery and underlines the fact that there is the self or the soul in everybody enveloped by materiality. As long as this covering of materiality remains intact, the soul remains hidden, unmanifest and suppressed. It is therefore necessary to pierce the shell of materiality. But the question is how? Gandhiji recognizes the brute in man, but he also believes that man can attain perfection if he so chooses. Gandhiji believes that man is the maker of his destiny. He must strive to become perfect. But complete perfection is possible only after the dissolution of the body, since the bonds of his flesh limit man. That is an obvious understanding. However, man still has to try to elevate himself, to lift himself up in this lifetime only. For Gandhiji, perfection in lifetime means a continuous, ceaseless striving towards knowing one's true nature. This becomes incumbent upon man since he is different from a brute because he is a moral being. Now let us do a brief elaboration of Gandhiji's idea of man. Gandhiji makes a distinction between external freedom and internal freedom. He rejects the notion that external freedom can be the means of ensuring the freedom of the soul within. For Gandhiji, it is Swaraj. What does Swaraj mean? Self-rule or auto-control that guarantees internal freedom. So one has to recognize the presence of the mighty spirit residing within. An inward change has to come with every man. Gandhiji deems it necessary to have laws for controlling the brute in us whenever it becomes active. Gandhiji is certain that man-made laws do not make men free. If anything, they frequently prove to be shackles. It chains human beings, man-made laws. If Gandhiji looks at man-made laws with distaste, he also condemns reason if it is devoid of morality. He does recognize the eminence of reasons in discriminating human from the beast, but however, it should have morality. Reason can discriminate, but it cannot produce the force that can lift the man up from the bondage of nature. This something that sanctifies reason itself is the object of Gandhiji's quest. It is the transcendental center. What is this transcendental center? The transcendental center is God, a mysterious power that pervades everything but keeps defying all proof. Gandhiji steers clear of two opposite extreme dangers, something we began with, spirituality versus materiality. These are totally abandoning the world of everydayness for pursuing the quest of the transcendental center and strict adherence to Varnashrama dharma. So, giving up everything and living according to the scripture. The other, emphasize the necessity of preserving the social order, argues that an individual is only a functioning component of the complex social organism. The other is that he has to follow the diktats of the material world. Gandhiji rejects both of these extremes. Gandhiji believes in pursuing the quest of transcendental center along with the performance of worldly roles. I am quoting Gandhiji. Man's ultimate aim is the realization of God, and all his activities, social, political, religious, have to be guided by the ultimate aim of the vision of God. I continue quoting Gandhiji. He further declares, devotion to truth is the sole justification for our existence. Without truth, it is impossible to observe any principles or rules in life. To hold on to relative truth as a means of realizing the absolute truth, it implies acceptance of the phenomenal world and the recognition of the importance of the vital concerns of life. Gandhiji recognizes the eventuality of the occurrence of conflict. He would, however, like to resolve conflicts non-violently, since non-violence is the other side of truth. But action must reflect a commitment to absolute truth, without which it is prone to embrace either a relativistic or absolutist horn of dilemma. Action for Gandhi is then not only the hearer of truth, but also a means of self-disclosure as a precondition of discovering truth. Action in this sense cannot be based on anything other than ahimsa or non-violence, since violence destroys the organicity of situation in which self-disclosure proceeds. Service of God does not come naturally. It comes when one recognizes that man is a part of God, a spark of the divine flame, and treats others also as partaking of the same essence. I am quoting again Gandhiji, that I believe in the rock bottom doctrine of Advaita, and my interpretation of Advaita excludes totally any idea of superiority of any state whatsoever. I believe in this inherent equality of all men, that I fight the doctrine of superiority which many of our rulers arrogate to themselves. To identify with others is, for Gandhiji, is to identify with the suffering of others. It is this awareness of the existence of widespread suffering and the necessity of sharing in and, if possible, alleviating the suffering of others that Gandhiji would like everybody to embrace as a sacred duty. You know, one of his popular bhajans was Vaishnava Janato Teno Kahiye Re Pir Parai Jane Re. So one is a really Vaishnav, one who knows the sufferings of others. Man, society and cosmos. Gandhiji's vision of man underlines the need to vanquish the brute in us by a conscious effort for self-development as the basis of self-knowledge. The attainment of self-knowledge is to attune our soul to the divine ground of reality. The first consequence concerns the awakening of nobler feelings in man, which express themselves in treating all life as a unity. service to the creation of God, especially those who stand at the lowest rung of social hierarchy. The second consequence is to forge a very intimate and strong bond with the environment and social order. It is in society that a person has to live and interact with others for survival and for the quest of freedom in the spiritual sense. Thus, it is necessary to achieve compatibility between the needs of a spiritually awakened person and the structure of society. I quote Gandhiji again, we shall have to consider how we realize the self and serve our country. For realizing the self, the first essential thing is to cultivate a strong moral sense. Morality means the acquisition of virtues such as fearlessness, truth, brahmacharya, and so on. Service is automatically rendered to the country in the process of cultivating morality. Now, I finally come to the end of this presentation, this unit, Gandhian idea of man. Before I close, I will give you a very brief summarization. Hence, Gandhiji's conception of man embraces the notion of man's perfectibility. To be fully human means the mounting of a conscious effort to cultivate morality through process of self-development. The cultivation of morality must take place in the phenomenal world. This signifies not the acceptance of the world as it is, but to improve this world through reforms, so that it serves the existential needs of spiritually awakened person. Thank you so much, viewers and listeners, for your patient hearing. All the best.